Om Shuklam Varadaram Vishnu Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyaye Sarva Vignopashantaye Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So like I mentioned, so the point of this whole topic, understanding this topic, is to understand Navagraha Puja. So in the Vedic tradition, we are all very familiar with Navagraha Puja in the sense, so we all have it done. So at home, when you invite a priest very often, you ask him to do Shanti, and then he does Navagraha Shanti. So this is something very common. We go to the temples, there are altars, there's an altar for Navagrahas, and so we go around it and things like that. But then there is always this, there's a lack of understanding in terms of what exactly this is, especially when it comes to so advice given by astrologists, for pariharams. So pariharams are remedial pujas, really speaking. So the situations come up, and then we talk to somebody, maybe an astrologer, maybe whoever, and then they say, okay, you're going through some kind of a difficult period, and so you do this, you do that, and they give some kind of a reason which we don't understand, and then they asked us to do some pujas, which also we don't quite understand, except that it costs us money, and so we are wondering, what is it? Is it just some kind of a superstitious thinking, or is it something meaningful? So I thought it'll be nice to know that, get a background. So to understand Navagraha Pujas, we have to understand its relationship of Navagrahas or Navagraha Devatas who are worshipped in terms of life, and things that happen to our life, in our life, and astrology. Okay, so this is the kind of the three points of the triangle. So let's look at this whole thing in a little detail. So what I'll try to do here in the next couple of sessions is to talk a little bit about astrology, to just kind of give a background about what it is, and then what is it that these people look at and how they look at, and then how it's connected to the Navagrahas and the pujas that we do, and they recommend. So if you look at our life, human life, after all, what is human life, really speaking? So we are born. I find myself born on this planet. And then there is me, the individual. I'm not alone. There is the world, Jagat. There's an individual, the Jagat, and there are other beings. So other beings in terms of other beings and other human beings. And then I relate to all of them. I have relationships with different things and different beings. Not only that, so I'm an individual with certain relationships with other individuals. And then I live a life. And after all, what is life? So life is a series of events, right? So day to day, so things happen. Things happen, I have to do things. Things happen to me. I interact with others. So life is really essentially a series of events. Now, when I look into this a little more closely, if we do, so what is the nature of these events that occur? And so are they expected? Are they unexpected? So when I look at life events, in the life events I find out there are certain things which are predictable. And there are certain things which are not predictable. So really speaking, so in fact, so everybody is an astrologer, a good predictive astrologer, because when your kids ask you questions as they are growing up, when they are young, you always tell them, you answer them. And suppose they say, "Mom, so when I get older, will I get married? So will I get a job? So will this happen? Will I graduate?" These kinds of things they ask. And what do you say? So yeah, of course. So when you grow up, you're going to learn, you're going to get a job, you're going to get married, etc. So what is all this? This is prediction. Okay? We don't know whether it's going to happen or not. But you tell them this will happen, that will happen. And you also don't say doubtfully. You say it with a lot of certainty, right? And then why do we have that certainty? It's not just bluffing. We are really sure, for the most part, because so it is all about probabilities, right? So we know. So it is very, very probable in terms of there's a extremely high probability that every person is going to get married at some point. Well, that is what people do. People learn, people grow up, people get, will I have, Mom, do you think I'll have kids? Of course, you're going to have kids. So, if you want kids, you'll have kids. So, this is all because there is a high probability. So, when we predict something, it is always in terms of probabilities. Okay. Now, when I look at events, so there are certain events which are, so that means predictable. They happen, they will happen. So for instance, death. Do you think I'll die or not? Well, nobody's going to be wrong in this prediction. So there are certain events which have a very high degree of probability and they are predictable. There are other events which are not predictable. So you can't predict, something happens. There's some kind of a thing at the airport. Nobody could predict this. Or some natural calamity. So we can solve with either a very, very low probability or low predictability, whatever. So some things are like that, events are like that. Then there are other events in life which we can predict, but then one thing about most of these predictions is we don't know when things will happen. We know it's highly likely they'll happen, but I know I'm going to die, but I don't know when I'm going to die. I can predict everybody is going to die around me who's alive, but I can't predict when they're going to die. So in terms of predictability also, so there are certain things I can say, there are certain things, but I cannot say when they happen. Okay. So now so if I want to increase my probability, and then I look at variables, etc. So it's interesting in astrology what they do. So there are certain things in life which are more or less predictable. Everybody who is born is going to grow, is going to get educated, is going to get married, is going to have relationships, is going to have a family, is going to have a family, whether a family or no family. But there is some kind of, we all have a relationship with the family. Okay. Everybody relates to a mother, whether their mother is alive or not. Even if they lose their mother, mentally they have a mother, etc. So that means these are things that are there true for everyone. So this is predictable things. Then you have unpredictable. So if what they did in older days was, so they took a human life and I see the different events that take place in my life and I try to find something to compare it with, which is very predictable, okay, which is mathematically predictable. And the one thing that we observe is that, so is the stars. So when it comes to the stars and the movement of the stars, we find that there is a mathematical accuracy in terms of predicting when a particular planet is going to be at what position in a period of time. So I guess so they thought, okay, if I plot the unpredictable life events which happen to everybody on one side, against the, so the mathematically predictable movement of the planets, then what I come up with, some kind of a probability curve. Okay. Probability curve. For example, so just to give a simple example, if I take 100 people, okay, and then I say, so I document when they get married, the date they got married, and I look at that particular, when they got married, at that time what was the placement of the planets in their chart, for example. And if I find some common elements, I find, hey, I see that for this particular event, so I see that these couple of things seem to be common for 90 of the 100 people. So this is a finding, and perhaps this finding is replicated so in other groups of people also. So then one person comes to me and asks me, so can you predict when I'm going to get married? And then I look at his chart and I see that this particular placement occurs at a certain time. So now I say that, well, I think there is a 9 out of 10 chance that this person would get married at this particular time. I can make this kind of a conclusion. And then I do that and I find it really helps. So if I imagine gathering this kind of a data over long periods of time, I came up with a shastra called as Jyotisha Shastra. So there are certain different types of, so paddhatis are there, traditions are there in terms of interpreting. So when you look at the stars and the placement, the positions of the different planet, that is what constitutes a astrological birth chart. And then they find there are a couple of things. So one is, after all, the person. So the placement and the positions are descriptive and predictive. So they have a certain high probability in terms of describing the nature of life events, or the nature of the person, the character of the person, and predicting the kinds of events, the time of occurrence, when certain kinds of things are highly likely to happen. So this is, in a very simplistic manner, some kind of is a way to, I find this an easy way to understand what actually goes on when they look at the horoscope. So having said this, so when we look at, so let us just see what is that happens. So there are, in looking at this Jyotisham, there is one thing. Uh, there are certain number of planets that are selected. So they make what is called as a chart, the astrological, the birth, what is called as the birth chart, or the nakshatra, the janma. Sorry, what? What is it called? Janma Patri. Yeah. So there is what is called as a Janma Patri. So in this Janma Patri, so let's just imagine now. So I'm born on Earth. I'm born at a given time. So the Janma Patri is a Patrika, is a chart which is charted at the time of birth, exact time of birth, and the depending on the positions of the planets at that particular time. So in order to do that, position means planets are all around me, in space. So to do that, if I visualize the zodiac, you take the zodiac, which is the circle, say a 360-degree circle around me in space. So in this 360 degrees is divided into 12 sectors, into 12 equal divisions, and each of which is naturally 30 degrees. Okay, and so each is called as a rashi, or a sign, and this is what constitutes what they call as the astrological signs, the zodiac signs. So in this we have, so in our tradition we have these 12 signs, which are, So here I can use my pointer. So starting, let's go this way, clockwise. So Mesha, Rishabha, Mithuna, then Kataka, Simha, Kanya, Tula, Vrishchika, Dhanush, and Makara, Kumbham, and Meena. So these are the 12 Rashis, and they have their English equivalents also. Now, so now I have this each 12 pies, sections of the circle. Now, in each of these, there are constellations. Okay? There are constellations. So, the whole, again, the 360 degrees is divided into, so 27 or sometimes 28, but for the chart purposes, it is 27 constellations. If you divide the 12 into 27, then each section gets 2.25. So these are what are called as the nakshatrams. So nakshatrams are the particular stars. So there are certain stars in each section, and so those are also listed in the chart. So I won't get into details of this, but we have 27, 2.25 in each. So now when I am born, so the planets are placed. How many planets? So for our astrology, we select nine. Nine particular planets are there, whose positions become important, of which seven of them are the planets of our solar system, like the sun, moon, the Mars. So here we have Surya. We will see them as we go around. So there are seven planets, and there are two what are called as nodes. So nodes are 2 points on the moon. When the Earth and the moon and the sun are aligned. So generally, when there are eclipses and so on, then 2 points on the moon are aligned in that alignment. So one is the north and the south. So the north is called as the north node, the south is called as the south node, and those two are represented by Rahu and Ketu. They are also considered to be grahas, and so thus we have these seven grahas and the two nodes Rahu Ketu. So in all nine. So these nine are then taken to see where they are placed, and they form the positions in these particular 12 rashis. Now, when I'm born, the sun, where the sun rises, okay, the sun rising. If I extend the line of the sunrise into the space, that particular line will be in a rashi, in a particular sign. That is what is called as a ascendant or lagna in Sanskrit. So thus I have the starting point. So which is number one, that constitute the what is called as the first house. Okay, first house. Now, so there are these nine grahas, which their characteristics, and then when it comes to me as an individual, I also have certain life, so what I am as a person, what I'm going through, what are my relationships, what are my life events, these are also categorized. Okay. So they are categorized into certain 12 categories called as sthanams or bhavas. So I'll explain a little bit each one of them. But then so my life categories, let us say, are in this group of 1 to 12. Okay. Each group representing some things about me and my life. So this number one, that is what is called as the sthanam or the house or the bhava. Okay. And so the first house, which is the first sthanam, is the lagna, which is the starting point for me, where the sun is at the time of my birth. And so, if you look at a chart like this, what happens in a birth chart? There are certain things that you see a birth chart tells. So it will, for example, let us say I was born. When I was born, the sun was so in this particular sign. So this now becomes my lagna. So that means this will be my house number 1, the first bhava or the first dhana. So then it will be say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this will be the 12 houses that represents different aspects of my life. And then there are these 12 signs, and then in which there are the 9 grahas, 9 planets. Okay. So it's getting more confusing.
What is the difference between Rashi and Lagna?
Okay, each sign is called a Rashi. There are 12 Rashis. Okay. Lagna is your first. When you were born, the sun is in a particular Rashi. That is called as the Lagna. Okay. So Lagna is only in the one Rashi connected to your time of birth. Not the sun. Correct. The rising sun extending to a point in a particular pi, in a particular Rashi, that is your ascending Rashi. Say ascending sun. Rising sun is the ascending sun. Okay. So when the sun ascends in a particular sign at the time of your birth, that becomes your ascendant sign or Rashi. Correct? The sun is rising somewhere at that time. So at the time of birth, wherever the sun is rising, there in a particular Rashi, that Rashi becomes the ascendant. Okay.
So this is based on the sun sign, right?
Not the sun, it is based on the sunrise.
Yes.
Yeah, the sun rising.
You can also have moon sign.
No. This is not the sun sign. This is not the graha. Okay, this is the rising sun extending into space. Whichever constellation it falls in, that becomes the ascendant. Your ascendant. The location of the sun itself within the system, the sun will occupy one of the 12 signs, like all the other planets will.
So that's if the Western astrology is sun sign.
Okay, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Don't even think of Western astrology. Yeah, because the terminology and all, no, we have to be very careful. Yeah. Sometimes it gets confusing when you use terms like house, sign, things like that. Because a lot of people call Rashis also houses. Then they call a house also a house. So that's why I'm trying to use different terms so that the separation is there. So instead of house, I keep saying bhava. So it's either the house or the sthana, which is different from the Rashi or the sign.
This 360 degree.
Yeah.
You have is it fixed in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4? They're fixed, so ascending means sun goes up and 3. All these.
The sun, as the sun moves. Yeah, there are different times of the day.
But that's fixed. Where
the
see is that's one particular thing. So sun rises and points to that. That's
the zodiac is, see, it is a representation. Okay, so really speaking, when you say it is fixed, it is the zodiac is fixed around us. I mean, the signs don't shift with respect to each other. Correct. Yeah, with respect to each other, they don't shift. Constellations remain where they are. That's why we can navigate. People used to navigate because the constellations were fixed. And so based on that, they used to navigate the oceans before all this GPS and all. So only purely by constellations. That's how the Polynesians and all, when they came. So they used to have, like we had poems, we had dictionaries in the form of poems and all. So they used to have songs, and the songs would describe the route. And the route would be in terms of the constellations that you see. So they would follow the other in the whole Pacific Ocean. They followed the route purely by nighttime navigation through these traditional songs that came down, and they used to then just come, and that's how they reached the Polynesian islands. So that is fixed. That doesn't keep shifting. What changes are the grahas or the planets. So with I think this much is okay for now. So yeah, so this is the chart. This is what the chart says. So now here look at. So what I said was there are 12 categories of things that happen. These are what are called as bhavas, or let us say houses. So we have what is 12 houses. Therefore, so when I'm born, my lagna it becomes my first house. The first house, I'll just quickly go over it to give you an idea. Don't try to remember it. I also can't remember it. I will read it. So the first house is called as the ascendant or the lagna or what is called as tanu bhava. It has to do, tanu means the body, the person. So this has to do with the self. It has to do with the individual, his appearance, his characteristics, the person's disposition. Then also something about the nature of birth. Birth itself is not so standard, in terms of people being born. So the birth and the early childhood, longevity, health, the general well-being, the happiness, self-esteem, willpower. So who the person is as an individual, the jiva, all these characteristics are characterized in this, let us say in the group in this house, first house. So with respect to house one. Then you have the second house, which is called as dhana bhava, and also called as vaksthana. So this dhana bhava talks a lot about my material, the material possessions, the sampatti, the wealth of a person, both material wealth and other forms of sampat, other forms of wealth. Then also, since it's the Vaksthanam, is in terms of what kind of person. So I'm a truthful person. So a person who twists things, who distort things, who's an outright pathological liar. All these kinds of nature of the person. So can be identified. Also in terms of knowledge, the person's intelligence, buddhi, it has to do with buddhi, education, creativity, and in terms of family life. So family life, domestic happiness, all these things are looked at in terms of the second sthanam. Then the third sthanam is called as sahaja bhava. So now again, if you look at this closely, it is different aspects of our life. In sahaja bhava, this has to do with the family, siblings. So family from the standpoint of siblings, then desires of a person, the kind of a life a person leads, whether it's an active, very active, dynamic, rajasic kind of a person, or a slow, quiet, sedentary, sedated, stagnant kind of a person. Okay? So in this, remember the description is not just one fixed. There is a range, like anything else. So it goes. Just look at it as a range from positive to negative. Okay. So, but these are the characteristics. So they can range from in a very positive sense or in a negative sense also. So this range is there. Then personality, courage, etc. Even travels are sometimes indicated. Short travels by the third house. The fourth is called as Sukha Bhava. It's called the home of the family and the home and the family. So the other relatives that I have, I have a home environment. Also has to do with the mother. It's a matrasthan. So it has to do with things, relationships with one's mother or maternal figures, comforts, contentment. Then also in terms of inheritance, they say assets, conveyance, education, the heart, emotions, passions, etc. All these things are represented in terms of the third house. Huh? I'm sorry, fourth house. Then we have fifth house is called as Putrasthana. So Putrasthanam has to do with relationship with children, also sometimes with father. Then a lot of speculative, events involving speculations like purchases, homes, gambling, romances. Is all life is speculations. So I guess they interpret not speculation only in terms of money, speculations also in terms of taking chances. That kind of speculation, religious mindedness, So deeds, morals, good deeds, charity, etc. Then you have this sixth house, which is called as Shatrusthanam. So it's also the house of health. So this has to do with health, illnesses, enemies, enemies in the sense of competitors. Competitors can also be enemies. So anyone competing against you, known or unknown. There is a known competitor, then unknown competitors, that kind of stuff. Co-workers, subordinate employees. Suppose there are people working. No, we are always in the middle. Nobody is a boss of everybody. So everybody has people under them and somebody above them. So, person goes to an astrologer, for example, and says, I'm having a lot of trouble at work. He's a supervisor, and all his people under him are giving a lot of problems. I'm wondering, should I quit the job, etc. All these things he said. And so the astrologer looks at his chart, and then perhaps he looks at this particular Shatru Sthanam. It's, oh, this is what's happening. No, no, no. This time, it's a period. It has to do with a period. So this period is like this, is affecting this aspect of your life. It's going to get over, etc. He said, no, don't. You need not change your job now. Then he says, if it notices this is at the beginning of this period, and this is going to go on for another so many years, then he may say, well, you might be better off just looking around. That kind of a thing. So this is what is this Shatru Sthanam. Then other things also Shatrus in terms of litigation, debts, so health, etc. Then we have the seventh sthanam called as Kalatra Sthanam or Jayasthanam. Kalatram has to do with spouse. Spouse. So that is marital life, nature of the spouse, partnerships. Now, again, any partnership is also like a spouse. In fact, you're more married to your partner, it's a business partner, because you spend more time always with the partner than with the spouse. So that also comes in this. And a relationship other people, with other people. It's interesting, in the chart, the first house and the seventh, the first and the seventh are on opposite sides. The first has to do with oneself. The other one opposite has to do with all with other people that I relate to. Then eighth house is called as nidhana bhavam, mrityu bhava. So mrityu here is it's not necessarily like the final exit, not that death, but any change, anything that comes to an end. So, for example, starting a project which will die before it takes off. That kind of also that is also considered kind of a mrityu. So, but it talks of life, longevity, death, finances, finances with partners, insurance, etc., accidents, occult subjects. These all fall under this category. Then we have ninth house, which is called Bhagya Bhavam or house of fortune. Also, relationship. Ninth house indicates relationships with father figures, with teachers, with elders, and good fortune, religion, etc. Faith, worship, travel, spirituality. They'll say people, like for example, if you have certain planets that are in this night, if your ninth house is in a particular Rashi, where there is Guru or there is Shani, and that will indicate strong spiritual tendencies. You find that these people did all this some kind of research in ashram when we were there, so collecting the horoscopes of all the students, and then you see and you find really there were people who had very common features, almost everybody, that they showed certain preponderance of certain kinds of astrological indicators. And then we have 10th house is called Karma Bhava, has to do with karma is actions, activities, career, professions, fame, power, status, pilgrimages, philanthropic activities, etc. 11th house is called Labhasthanam, which indicates gains, profits, incomes. It's also connected to uncles, uncles, aunts, elder siblings. And the 12th house is called Vyaya, Vyaya Sthanam. Vyaya means when losing. It's called the house of expenditures. So when things are going on in that area, one may incur losses and confinements. Also, it's called moksha sthana, indicates spiritual tendencies, indicates life after death, etc. So things connected to mrityu and moksha. So now these are the different aspects of one's life which say you categorize. So now I have these 12 different categories that get juxtaposed to this particular chart on top of the rashis. So positions of the planets and the planetary positions in the particular zodiac. Now each one has certain characteristics that reveal different things, and you put it all together and then come up with some. It's pretty complex. It's not a simple one-on-one kind of a situation. So because there are many factors that need to be, so there are many factors that are considered in order to interpret this. So one question always comes up. Okay, so now you know all these things, you know all the placements. So now what does that all mean? Well, what it means is dependent on what characteristics are there for the different. Now each, now when you say, like for example, there are 9 grahas. Each graha has a characteristic. So like Surya, so the 9 planets are Surya, Chandra. Then we have Mars, Puja. Then we have Buddha. Then the Guru, Shukra, Shani, and Rahu Ketu. Now each one of this has certain characteristics. Each one of this is in a certain Rashi. Each Rashi also has characteristics. Okay. So, for example, you take a particular characteristic, a Rashi, start with the first one, let us say. So, the Mesha or the, now each Rashi is influenced by one particular farm. Another thing you should know. So, in astrology, there is a language, which is also important. In any subject, every subject has its own lingo. A good example is computer. So if you want to understand anything about computers, you have to know the meaning of hardware, software. So there are all these terms that they use, data, input, output, delete, trash, you trash your file. Suppose this is a language of a computer. This has nothing to do with your garbage. Which day is the garbage day? Which day should I trash the flight? Because my garbage is collected on Tuesday. You can't think like that. So because there is a different meaning. So everything has a lingo. And the language you have to know in order to understand what is being said. In astrology also, it has its own language. So there the language is in terms of the houses and the grahas. So the graha becomes the lord of the house. Okay. So each house, or sorry, each sign, let us say each Rashi has a natural owner. Someone, so there is a planet who's the natural one owner, means he influences the house. His characteristics influence what happens in the house. Okay, in that particular Rashi. So every Rashi has a devata. When we talk of grahas, now we are looking at it in terms of planet. Ultimately, this planet becomes a devata for us. Okay, because everything for us is God manifest as a devata in this particular form is involved. So here, so let us say for Mesha, there is a natural lord of the house, who is Kuja. Kuja is Mars. So here again in this particular chart, if you see for the 12 houses, we have 9 of the grahas on the 12 houses. Let us say they are the lords of the 12th house. So 7 of them being the lords of the 12th house will be, so naturally you won't have one on one. Okay. So the Kuja is the lord of Mesha and Vrishchika, these two. Here we have Shukra as the lord of these two houses, the Rishabha and Tula. Then we have Buddha as the lord of Mithuna and Kanya. We have Shani as the lord of Makara and Kumbha, and then Guru as the lord of Meena and Dhanush. And then for these two, we have just Surya and Chandra as the lord of this particular house. So now we have, so these lords of the house will make influence what is going on in this particular Rashi. Now this is the natural position of the natural ownership. Now keep in mind, when I'm born, the placement of the planets is not going to be like this. Not going to be like this. This is their natural, this is what they own. It's like, we own a house. There is a natural owner of the house. Then there is a tenant. So the natural owner is not always the tenant. Sometimes you may have somebody else who's the tenant in the house. So when you're born, there are grahas occupying different rashis. There are some rashis which may not be occupied by anybody. There are some rashis which may have more than one occupant. So it all depends on the individual. So those become the tenants of the house, of the rashis. So now now look at this. How many factors do we have? We have the rashis, 12. We have the seven natural owners of the rashis, who are the devatas. And then we have the tenants of the rashis, who are the different grahas. Okay. Now, so in this, now let us take one particular Rashi. There is Kuja, who is the natural owner, who's going to influence. And remember, in our example, this was the ascendant for the person. This was the first house. So first house has certain indicators. It indicates certain things. So now, in order to interpret the indications of the first house, whatever it indicates, I look at where it is located. I look at the characteristics of the who of this of Kuja. Plus, I look at the characteristics of the tenant. Tenant may be Kuja, it may be somebody else, it may be Surya. So if it is Surya, then Kuja and Surya have a certain interactive relationship. Okay. One may be positive, one may be negative, one may be all kinds of things are there. So in interpreting an horoscope, I look at the Rashi, the natural owner, the occupant. So the position of all of this, the characteristics of all of this, how each one interacts with the other, and how each one is placed with respect to the others. Okay. Okay, so for example, so Kuja, for example, this house, in my ascendant, the tenant is Surya. Okay, it is the natural lord is Kuja, who may be still there, but Surya is also there sitting with him. Okay, now if both of them have a positive relationship with each other, their effects will get enhanced. They will enhance each other's effect. If they have opposing relationship with each other, they may negate each other's effect. So one may indicate that, okay, he has certain type of a characteristic. The other one indicates the opposite. So that means they will nullify each other. If suppose both are indicating a similar thing, then it will enhance. Okay, what is going to happen? So like I said, in any, it's not that a particular graha gives you one result. It may, for example, second house is speech. So between truth and falsehood, there is a range. So depending on what is there. So if it is something which is positive, it will give positive end of the spectrum. If there is something which is negative, it will give a negative end of the spectrum. Suppose there are two planets there. both indicate positive. So it will be an enhanced positive. If both are negative, it will be an enhanced negative. If one is positive, one is negative, they will cancel each other. So when you interpret something as an astrologer, they look at all these factors. Okay, they look at the characteristics of all these individuals that are in a particular Rashi. Not only that, they also look at how what their relationship is in connection with the other planets around them. Okay, that is what's called as aspects. So they use this term aspect. Aspect means somewhere what is there in another house, either opposite you or two houses down, etc. That is called aspecting. So they will look at their own characteristics. They look at their positions. They look at what is there opposite each other, and they also see the position of a particular graha planet within the Rashi. So within the Rashi, for example, don't forget, say the planets are moving in a circle. They go from one Rashi to another, right?
So that's what you can
They travel.
Directly mentioned about Surya.
Yeah.
First ascendant. But what are the planets that go after that? Is that the same order as that?
No. They won't be, because all planets don't move in a line. Okay, they are at different distances from
the
the.
time of birth. The time of birth. You have this basic chart, right?
Yeah,
And you have an ascendancy, so you decide which one is going to be the first house.
correct.
For that particular element. What's the position of what are the talents at that time? What are the rest of the planets? Where are they?
They will be in the sky in different positions.
But will they be in the same?
No, because they will be in different positions, and those are also charted in your chart. Now, don't forget, all the planets are moving at different rates. They all don't move at the same rate around the sun. So since they are moving at different rates, they will be in different positions. Okay, they will not necessarily follow the same particular pattern. Moon is also going in its own direction, in its own way. Now, how they are all going, you can predict where they're going to be mathematically. But where they are at a given point, they won't follow like a straight line or anything like that. So that at a given time, whatever positions they are in the sky, that will be put in the chart. That position will be put in the chart. So when it is, for example, there is one, so you have the Surya, the same example if we take. So in Mesha, I have the sun. Now the sun can be right in the middle of Mesha, or it may be at that end, so in the 30 degrees, it can be anywhere in the 30 degrees. Now it has what they call as different strengths at different places in the sign. That's what's called as balam. Okay, so each planet has an inherent what is called as balam, a strength. That strength depends on its location, exactly where it is, and that its strength balam, not only its own location, but it's also influenced by the presence or absence of others around it. Okay,
Strength, are you referring to being exalted or debilitated?
that is one characteristic. Yeah, that is one characteristic. So the strength of a balam is different from whether you are exalted or debilitated. Okay. So no, wait, Usha. I don't want to get into astrology, okay, because I'll be doing two sessions will be astrology, I don't want to get into astrology. So yes, just to show what is there in a chart. That's why I'm using only one example of sun. So, but there are other planets around it also, and the 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 way I interpret the sun is going to be its own characteristics, its location, within the Rashi, and then it will depends on its what is called as balam, that is the strength. But its strength is also influenced by the presence or absence of the other planets in and around it, plus it's influenced by its connection with what is here, what is here. All that also will affect it. All those things I have to look at in order to interpret what sun being here means. That's the only idea I want to present. So, in terms of interpret, so therefore, the graham becomes important, location, and then there is the original Rashi, the placement. There are the original owners. Then there are the tenants. They all influence each other in order to figure out how you're going to interpret the particular characteristics of a house and of the planet. So now, when it comes to me, I've seen that my life is categorized into these 12 categories in terms of me, my nature, my character, my relationships, my life events, health, wealth, etc. All these things, which are all common to everybody. So these are the different groups. So that will also occupy a certain position. For example, starting from one here. So when it comes to the house, so for this person will be house number one will be Mesha. Then if I want to know anything that say has to do with Kalatram or the spouse. So Kalatram is the seventh house. So this is here. So then I look at this Tula Rashi. And then I say now Tula Rashi is Vrishika. No, seventh of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tula. So it is Tula Rashi. So I look at Tula Rashi. Now in this Rashi, Shukra is the owner, original owner. So I have to keep him in mind. Then I have to keep in mind who are all the other people around it, the nature of this, its strength, the strength of the other planets, and then some of the other planets that are aspecting this particular thing. All these things I look at to come up with some kind of a interpretation for Kalatram in this area, because that is the seventh house. So like that, I have the 12 houses, I have the 12 grahas, I have the 12 tenants, and I have all their positions, etc. All these things are put together, okay, to interpret. Now we've saw something about the houses. So now we have to see something about the nature of the grahas also. So we look at different. Now what happens is, where am I? Okay, time wise. So this is the astronomy aspect of it. Now I have to see the grahas also have a characteristic. But then it is not really speaking that the particular planet is doing something to this person. You have to keep that in mind. The planet is a symbolic representation positionally for me to interpret and get a probability. But really speaking, what is happening to me is happening because of my karma. Okay. So the causation of life events is not connected to the planets. The causation of my life events is connected to my karma. The planets become a symbol. They become a symbol of something to indicate different aspects of my life and different events of my life. So I invoke the Lord in the form of, so in connection with all these different signs. Okay. So that this is where the grahas so become graha devatas. So when we talk of different things happening, these happenings are connected to my karma. Karma is something that is connected to the order, which is the divine order. So the expression of divinity through these life events, which is only indicated by these positions of the planets, which I chose in order to get some kind of an interpretation. So that is where, therefore, when we say this, the Lord of this particular house, when we talk about, we talk of it in terms of a Devata. So the Surya becomes Surya Devata, Chandra becomes Chandra Devata, and then Agni becomes this whatever, or the Kuja, etc. So they all become different devatas. So we are going to look at little bit the karma and the devata aspect of it. Okay. And I think this much is enough for astrology, because otherwise it's we can have a separate session to get into.
You can write somebody's horoscope and you can see how it changes the positions. That's all. Like if I put someone's horoscope there, they can tell how their horoscope, the positions are not in line and what it was that the person was born.
The karma dictates the positioning of line of birth.
Karma determines time of birth. Karma determines everything that happens to us, really. You know.
This is just
Yeah.
an indication.
If this is going to be predictive in terms of what's going to happen based on your karma,
Yeah.
then your time of birth and your horoscope, all kind of should be working synonymous with that, so that the effects of the karma are all coming together.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can change it also.
Yeah. This is only our statistical predictions. But what is happening is really karmic. You know, what is happening is karmic. This is how we created a system in terms of saying what is the probability of something happening at a given time. And can I do anything about it or not is the other issue. So that we'll just take a 5-minute break, and then I just want to shift our thinking process.
I have a question.
And then,
Dhiraji.
yeah, please.
Nowadays, people go for C-sections and they will decide which graha is when and all that.
Yeah.
And then
Usha, you want to put some? Yeah, put some. You want to let me give you. Correct. So there are a lot of people I know who, yeah, who have done that. No, even that. So this, there are people. I knew one astrologer who really planned it well. So you look at the whole thing, and it's a C-section. You can schedule it, you know, and they schedule. But I tell you, you can schedule what you want to schedule, but the doctor has to be available at that time. The doctor should not be caught up in traffic. There are a lot of things that happen, and whoever I know who has tried to do that, it hasn't happened at that time. Okay. So they say no. So who was?
This time the doctor is scheduled in India.
No, you know.
The day you decide to come.
Going in, you may be taking the few extra minutes on this.
Few extra
Usha, what was that? What is that story about Shani putting his?
Ravana and Abhimanyu.
So you remember in Mahabharata? In Mahabharata, there is this one story. I don't remember it, Abhimanyu, but at a particular time, that Shani is supposed to move. So he says that just wait for him to go. And so they wait for him to go. But then they think, oh, Shani's time is there, he moved. But you know what happened? Shani is a Manda Shani. So he's Manda. Manda means he's slow. And the reason he's slow is because he has one leg. One leg is deformed. Okay. So he drags his leg. So Shani moved into the next Rashi, but the leg was still there. So this person thought that he moved. So the idea being that we really cannot predict. Okay, I'm going to just stop here, this particular thing, and I'll continue. Just let me just shut this off, because
Even a few minutes would change.